My first spiritual experience started, I had it when I was 14 years old. I had a dream that night, and the dream was a lucid dream. It was a very vivid dream. And in this dream, I was walking by an unknown body of water. And then as I was walking, there was this piano, but it wasn't just any type of piano. It was like a translucent looking piano. It was clear. You could see water flowing through it. And I instinctively went up to the piano, and there was this bench, like it was like really long. And I sat down and I began to try and play the piano. As I began to try and play, there was this figure that came and sat next to me. Some would call it an angel, some would call it a light being. I couldn't see the face of the figure, but I could see his hands, and I would say his hands because I guess I could say it felt like a male presence. And he began to show me chords in the key of C major. Now, of course, at this moment, I didn't know what they were. I just was retaining what was being shown to me in the dream. It was so vivid. In fact, when I woke up from the dream in real life, I began to play the piano just from what I had learned in the dream. I went to church the following Sunday, so this is 7 days later, just 7 days later, and the pastor asked me, looked at me as if he knew something had happened. And he was always very spiritually connected. He was not like normal pastors. So I told him, yeah. And so I came up to the organ and I began to play what I had learned in the dream. And then I also noticed the songs that they were singing, they were very simple hymnals. And so the chords that I had retained the knowledge on how to play, I was able to put those with the simple hymns that were being sung in the church. And everybody was astonished. So that was my first experience. So I was working for one of the big three delivery companies. My aunt said, you can pick which one. It was about 90 degrees that day. I was drinking an energy drink. And as I was driving, it was pretty hot. It was so hot, in fact, that my arms was a different color than the rest of my body. I believe they call that a farmer's tan. And I was drinking this energy drink, and at first I wasn't feeling good, but then I started feeling really good as I was driving through this cornfield, and I mean as far as your eyes can see, and this kind of a small road, and so I'm driving through there. So as I'm driving, just all of a sudden, I started feeling really good, and I could say I like popped out of my body at lightning speed while driving. The thing about it is that I was still able to see the perspective of me driving, but I was also the corn in the cornfield. So like the stalks of corn was looking at the truck that I was driving. The birds that were flying, I could see the view of them looking at the top of the truck. The specks of dirt that were in the ground, I could see that from that view. And I mean, when I'm saying dirt, I'm talking about like specks of it, millions. As I began to try to get my composure of these aspects all at the same time, now I felt really good and I felt like super love. It's I couldn't contain it how it felt. So instinctively, as I was driving, from that point of view, I pulled over. But because the road is small, there was no really pull over. It's just, but I was the only one out there. So I just pulled to the side, and as to not drive all the way into the cornfield, which I would have drove into myself at that moment because that's how I was viewing everything. It was absolutely crazy. I can't even fully explain. I don't even think I'm doing it any justice trying to explain it with, English and human words. So I then began to receive like that download of information just about who we are. I mean, and it wasn't like we're talking, it was just um, mental or telepathic or whatever you want to call it. And the thing about it is that the type of information that I was getting, I was able to later on, and I don't mean to jump around, but kind of see like parallels of it in the Bible, and because I've studied the Bible all my life, and I was able, it was kind of like finding an encryption in the Bible that had always been there, but most would overlook it because of our perception of it, But in that moment, I just remember crying, I mean, sobbing, crying like a baby. And it was like after that moment, all the lights were turned on. When I was told this information, and I received this download, it just it didn't necessarily line up with the doctrine that I had been raised and taught to believe. And it was like, you better believe it or else. Unfortunately, a lot of times when people operate in ego, they need people to think like them in order to further whatever their purpose is. Like, that's not a good or bad thing. It's just people living their story as a human. Because that was the first thing I found out, is that in that download, we're not human. We are unlimited spiritual beings. We are experiencing being a human with all the bells and whistles that come with it, a body and all the wonderful things that come with it. We are experiencing it, but that is not what we are at the core of our essence. So downloads definitely would come after that experience, and then other major spiritual experiences happen too, after that, and they still happen. Anything that you can see in your mind that I want to accomplish this one, if you can see it, that's because it's there. That's because it's real, because that reality is actually more real than this reality. Everything that's ever been created has been created twice, once in spirit and then in the human reality, right? Everything. Because even if you write a book, it has to come from somewhere. It has to be created there first. If you can't see it, if you can't visualize it, it'll never ever happen. Even if you want to go from your house to your job, you have to see yourself try getting there. Now you do a second nature. It's almost simultaneous. And that's the same thing with faith. That's the same thing with manifestation. Faith is a muscle. It has to be exercised. So you exercise it. Like when you working out in the gym, you get bigger muscles the more you do it. And rest too. I'm not a personal trainer, but that's what I've heard, right? If you want to have a more spiritual experience, the first step is to appreciate where you are and what you are doing, regardless of what's happening. So it's finding the good in anything. I don't care if it's just you got to have a drink of your favorite lemonade or whatever it is. Somebody didn't get lemonade today. Or if it's simply hugging your child, because if you notice how happy pets are, like specifically puppies or dogs, right? Do you notice how you can be with them and then leave, and then 5 minutes later come back and they're wagging their tail and jumping all over you, right? Because they appreciate. To them, nobody told them, no, you're supposed to wait a couple of days before you get that happy again. That's human thinking. You see what I mean? So it's what we tell ourselves. So when we talk about ascension or something like that, that's just the ego wanting to give ourselves somewhere to go. And the reality is we've already been there. Matter of fact, we're there now. Because even though we are focused on the human experience, even the Bible says this, and like I said, it's very encrypted, but the Bible says we are seated in heavenly places with Christ, right? So what's that saying, right? We're there. Seated is foundational. That means that's where you are. A lot of people don't know this because where I'm from, these aren't really taught like that. Some of them do, but it's all, and then the way it's interpreted, the foundation of who you are is spiritual. Even when when we're wrestling with manifestation, we want things to happen, right? And we think that it has to do with the employer on the job or the government or something like that, right? Well, the Bible clearly says you wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, spiritual things. These are in high places. Do you know why? Because you are in a high place. Prayer is a very real thing, and the way you do it is up to you. You can be driving in your car or jogging or working, and just in your mind say what you feel, but be for real about it, and God will hear you. And I'll say this: when you do pray, know what you're asking for, because some things that you're asking for is not what you are asking for, because you don't know what's all in comes with what you're asking for. For instance, somebody could say, well, I want to be married to whoever forever. Say you're married, I want my marriage to last forever, right? And then you go and you pray, I want to be a billionaire, right? But because you really want to be married forever, and source knows that if you become a billionaire, you might not be married forever, more than likely, because of where your heart is. You see what I mean? So if your real, whatever your real desire is, and actually this is good or bad, whatever your real desire is, right? It will, your real prayer will always supersede the stuff that you kind of want. What you really want will always supersede what you kind of want. For instance, when Jesus said, if any two of you touch and agree, ye shall have, he shall have, they shall have whatever they say, right? And the interpretation to that is we're thinking like two different people, but it's not really that at all. I talk about this in my book. It is that, but it's actually more than that. It's actually you. When it's talking about the two of you, it's talking about the two of you as who you are. You are the thought that you think, and you are also the action that you take. If thought you disagrees with action you, there's no agreement there, there's no touching there, therefore you're not going to have it. But when the thought you says, okay, I want to, for instance, like in my case, I want to write a book, and then action takes time out of my day to write the book. You see what I mean? But if action would have said, no, I want to play video games like Call of Duty Black Ops or something like that, right? Well, guess what's, that's not agreement between thought and action. So thought you and action you are not touching, so you're not going to have what you are saying. Thought. You see, that's another manifestation thing. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is that with prayer, it's got to be something that you really want, and that's really in your, also in your agreement. Now, I can't get into the depths of that because I don't know how far I can't speak for everybody's psyche. I can't speak for everybody's agreement. I can only speak for mine. But the human experience is the greatest experience. I'm just going to say that to be biased because I'm currently human. All right. And we all, yeah, we all are, right? It's where we are. And it's the best thing to know that soon as we put down this experience, we're back into the love, or back into who we are. Matter of fact, if you meditation, that's another way, right? Even if you meditate long enough, just block out everything, take out all the distractions, all the social media and all that kind of stuff for a moment, and you'll be able to see it, you'll be able to feel it, you'll be able to know it. Gratitude, yeah, there's gonna be things that come across your mind. That's okay. Go with it. You know what I mean? But you will find out, that there's so much more. I'm an 80s kid, so I grew up with the Transformers. More than meets the eye. And one minute they're a car, next minute they're a robot. That's who we are. And so with everything that's going on, just know that we are love. We are like, love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself, and your neighbor is God, because you are. So it's all the same thing. And now I put that in my